everybody, this is Perch. The issue that came up earlier, I think last week, whenever the original video was posted, what's funny is I'm recording this on the same day that I did the video talking about Joelle Jones swiping. And but I know this video will go up like a week later. So I'm trying to now talk like it's the future. So, how about that stock market? It was crazy. And that fourth variant, Jesus, when is it going to end? Anyway, the topic was around specifically Jones and swiping and kind of everything that went on there. But I'm interested. I want to dig in more to just tracing and swiping in general, because some of the responses, quite a few actually, including people in and out of the industry, talked about, well, what do you expect? The industry pays so low. And I like that answer. I like that comment because it showcases kind of the difference between kind of what's right and what's pragmatic in some cases. And not that the two are mutually exclusive. It's just, that is one thing that I think a lot of people in comics struggle with is the pragmatism of it all. It's like, why do comics cost $4.99? Well, they shouldn't, but they do because people buy them at that cost. And there hasn't been a compelling argument within comics that says if you make them cheaper, more people will buy them. That blows people's mind, by the way. Every time I say that, I feel like an angel dies or whatever. A fairy loses its wings. Whatever it happens to be. People go nuts when I say that comment, but it's true. The problem that publishers have right now is if they go cheaper, there's not evidence that they'll sell more comics. Now, anecdotally, you'll say, well, of course they'll sell more comics because it's cheaper and more affordable. So of course they will. But there's not proof that that's true. In fact, there's more actual proof that it's not true. If you look at some of the comics that sell at that rate, I mean, people always bring up Alterna. Alterna sells books, sure, but Alterna is not selling hundreds of thousands of copies of comics at that lower price point. They should. If that was the barrier, they should. But of course, there's a number of other things. The people who are on the books, name recognition, where it's distributed, and on it goes. But I mean, even if you look at some of the Image books, or you look at Spawn, you look at things that are priced cheaper, it doesn't sell tremendously better. Spawn's spiked some really big numbers lately, but it's the number ones, and it's usually tied more to variants. It's not the cost. I wish it was. But it just that is the challenge. Anyway, I got off track. So there's a certain pragmatism there, though, that says, well, if you pay people the rate you pay them, and in the video I actually mentioned a different factor, which was, most likely very little notice, and that being an issue. And even since that video has come out, meaning today, there's been people are now digging. Unfortunately, this is exactly what I thought was going to happen, which is depressing, but it's people are now digging through into different areas. So Patrick Gleason, there's a picture floating around now of Patrick Gleason Superman, and then Joelle Jones in the Tom King Batman issues that she illustrated. And once again, it's more stuff that looks like swiping. And unfortunately, it's this is the sad aspect of this story, is if you're swiping from Patrick Gleason and you're swiping from Pepe Larraz, those are big industry heavy hitter people, and people who generally are well liked. Like you're not swiping from someone who's hated in the industry. You're swiping from somebody who, people who are generally considered, really sweet guys, and it's gonna kneecap her career. I don't see how it doesn't. Unfortunately, I mean, the best case scenario is everybody just kind of forgets about it, which I hope. Again, I like Joelle Jones quite a bit. Very nice person. I appreciate the art. I don't think this person should be canceled by any stretch of the imagination, but the circumstances are not good. Like those are two people, and how sad is it that if you swipe from those two, it's likely going to hurt her. If she'd swipe from relatively no-name indie artists or anyone doing comics back in the 80s, no one would have cared. That to me is very sad, but that's a whole different topic. But what about this argument that comic books aren't paying enough? And so, what do you expect? And again, I'll throw in the one I threw in: tight deadlines, low pay. You're going to get a lot of shortcuts. Is that, should we be holding, somebody like Jones or others who do this, should we be holding them to the standard? I mean, people are running around there saying, this is plagiarism, this is theft. A good part of me does feel like, yes, I think if you're hired to do a book and you're using a light table and you're basically, or you're using digital and you're using layers, which is unfortunately how a lot of it works now, where you just, you throw something on a layer and you just digitally go over it. If that's what you're doing and you're a paid commercial artist, you're somebody who's actually, being paid to do original art for this book, then yeah, you have wandered into plagiarism territory. That's that's how I feel at my core. For me, again, your mileage may vary, and everybody gets to make their own opinion on this. But I also it resonates with me very deeply. This idea of, and you're paid like garbage, and you're given no notice, and your schedules suck, and that's a pretty harsh reality too. So again, you get what you pay for. If you're paying kind of dirt rates, what artists and creators are going to find ways to cut corners. It doesn't make it right, but it does make it reality. This is a pragmatism bit comes in. It's if you, it's that old, what is it? If you leave your car unlocked and you go into a shady part of town, and on the passenger seat you have an Apple bag with brand new computer in there, and then you go in to have a drink for 3 or 4 hours at a bar, and you come out and somebody has broken into your car and stolen your stuff. The theft is wrong, but you did kind of walk into that one. And so it does feel like that. I think there is a lot of truth to the fact of, if you're an industry that gives next to no job security, and you pay low rates, and you give people little notice, because I'll just be my own little ugly commentary here, because you've allowed a bunch of prima donna writers to basically work whatever schedules they want and screw everyone else down the chain. That's probably too, that's not too harsh. Screw those people. If that's the kind of world you've created, then you can't be shocked when somebody cuts corners and somebody plagiarizes. Still doesn't make it right, but again, like, what do you expect? I think this argument of pragmatism fits a lot of things in comics. I think that piracy is wrong in comics. I think it's bad what they do. These websites, Read Free Comics, and so on. What they're doing is wrong. That's theft. However, when you're charging $4.99, $5.99 for a comic, when you're misleading people with a cover that shows one artist and then an interior artist that's different and usually of far lower quality, when your user interface for your digital tools is such garbage, when your timing for getting something out on digital is haphazard and random, what do you expect is going to happen? I think that's, again, you have to kind of think two ways at once. And by the way, this is not a middle of the road centrist position. It's this is still wrong, but you really walked into that one. You set the table for this whole thing to happen. And what kind of, I think, is a little ugly about all this is, you can kind of predict the future. Joel Jones, and by the time this video runs, who knows what will have happened, what kind of fallout there will be, because this story is picking up more traction. But by the time this video airs, the way I feel this is going to go down is that Joel Jones is going to get some kind of black eye out of this. Career is going to get kneecapped out of it. Again, largely because the art was traced from Pepe Larraz and Patrick Gleason, and again, in the next 3 hours, probably 4 or 5 more artists are going to come out of the woodwork that this fits with. But well-known, well-liked artists that nobody likes to see stuff stolen with, as opposed to, all those other indie artists that, like, the amount of, by the way, as long as we're calling, as long as we're calling it out here, there's a lot of artists, legitimate mainstream artists, that go to DeviantArt, find fan art, and then go to town. That is really common. If you really want to get into brass tacks here, a lot of those unknown artists get ripped off all the time, and you do not see industry outrage about those people, because who cares about them? They're no names. Nobody knows them, so don't care. But it happens regularly. But regardless, because she used artwork from two relatively popular artists who are well liked, DC will make an example. They will, deprioritize her for work. She'll get less at the company. Magically, people will show up and start blaming Wonder Girl's sales success on her as well, forgetting that the title was delayed and the marketing went haywire, and all these excuses will come out. It was like, well, yeah, she doesn't sell anyway. You're going to see all that kind of crap come out. And at no point is anybody going to say, you set a scenario of low pay, bad schedules, no notice, books randomly. Now, we can't use the excuse codes for Joelle Jones on the right, because she was a writer for this book, so that she can't blame herself for being late on scripts. But the low pay and all the rest, nobody's going to look at that and go, we create an industry where this is pretty much guaranteed to happen. That kind of self-reflection is not going to happen. Instead, it's going to be, this miserable person needs to be driven out of comics. That to me feels like the conclusion to this story. And I think that's a shame. Now, I may be wrong. Maybe, DC's like, hey, we asked her not to do it again, kind of Krusty the Clown style. It's like, if you did it, naughty, but DC forgives you. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that goes on. Like, is somebody, like, at what point is Axel Braun going to have a conversation with Greg Land? Huh? I just throwing that out there. Like, all of three of you got that reference. But I think that I don't know. I hear you, the people in the comments that said, you know what? She did nothing wrong. She was perfectly in her right to sleep with those women. No, wait, that's a different writer. She was perfectly in her right to take some shortcuts based on this miserable pay of this industry. I hear you. I don't think that's a good reason. I don't think that's a good excuse, but I do agree that's a good reason. I think that's a good reason why this happens. And I think if the industry truly hates this, and we're about to see whether the industry hates it or not. I mean, it's funny. There's a lot of other comic artists, other freelancers who get very angry about it, and they're justified to get angry about this. But every now and then, the publishers, like I see editors throwing a real fit. I'm trying to think, like, who was the editor? I remember Bob Harris getting really, outraged about this, and it's like, dude, you and your policies were part of the reason this happens. So you could get as feisty as you want over it, but until you change yourself, be prepared for this to continue to happening. So anyway, I just wanted to follow up on I wanted to circle back, as they say in the White House. I wanted to follow up on this because I think it is a really interesting topic, and I think it's one that it's too easy to just throw it off as, you shouldn't steal. And then, people argue about that for a while, but they don't dig into the heart of the issue. And the heart of the issue is we still have a broken industry if this is the kind of stuff that emerges out of it. Now, I'm not saying you start paying everybody better, that this magically goes away. But again, somebody steals something out of your car. It's not right. Theft is wrong. Breaking and entering is wrong. But you did drive the car into a shady neighborhood. You left it, unlocked for several hours. Come on. You're the victim here, but you're kind of, you did that to yourself. A little bit. And maybe a lot. Thanks for listening.